Well, hello, hello, hello. And we are
And
live.
yeah, let me turn that down. We're
Woohoo.
loud. Okay.
Am I loud?
No, it's
What's
you.
happening,
You come
everybody?
across
Oh,
hot,
okay.
a little bit hotter than everybody else, but that's okay.
There we go. That should be better.
All right, there we go. Welcome everybody. We are here, season 3, Honest Johns. I think we're episode 7.
We are. I gotta fix that.
Yep. Okay.
Done.
Episode 7. However, in Josh Cabarrus's campaign, but if you guys haven't, where is the hell is Nick? Nick is below me. He is below me in the screen. Nick is. So he has returned. The prodigal son has returned, right? So we had a campaign, the campaign that was running Into the Desert, right? Is that what it's called, if I remember correctly? Into
Mm-hmm.
the Desert. Um, Cabarrus was running, and he had sent something to
Physically meld.
physically meld to Nick, and we are going to, as it stands right now, get a recording of kind of Nick's impression and reading through this.
Let me start by just showing you folk at home the production value of this
Here, hold on, Nick. I'm
letter.
actually gonna give you
Actually, let
your
me also do
own
this.
your own thing here.
Oh, we're
Let's
going so. Oh,
let's do
solo.
display capture. I think. Well, you can do this.
And
I'm
then
going to turn this
once
off so
Nick
that
goes over
people can
his
actually
thing,
see this.
we will then roll into Scott giving us a rundown from the BS that happened last week, because there's always BS with this damn group right now. And then we'll get really going into the campaign. So
Is this
it's all yours, Nick.
window? Hold on, hold on,
It's
hold on.
even
Window,
signed.
window capture. That's what I want.
Okay, I'll start for the beginning then.
All right, and we can do.
This is
Are,
a
are,
long read.
are
I'm
you
going to
going to
tell
want
a
him to
little bit of
read
a
it
novel.
out loud, Cabarrus? Is that what you're going
Yeah.
to want to? Okay.
Discord. Okay. And then I do this. Nick say stuff.
Yep, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Keep going.
All right, mic check 1 2 1 2.
Your own.
How's that audio? Are we good? All right. So to review, Cabarrus in his other campaign, as he is the DM, had mailed me this wonderful book, basically. But look at that production value. I mean, we've got some wrinkly papers. It looks weathered. It is signed. So Clue would have been the character that would have opened this in Eric Okra. So when the green worm, wow, Ilamarsario, that's okay. Savaged the Star Mount. I think it's Illuster Mollister. Alacromalacross. Okay, so when the green worm Alacromalacross savaged the Star Mounts colony, he slaughtered my entire clan. Oh, since that terrible day, I have devoted my life to preserving the lore of my great race. I have traveled to the far jungles of Aarakocra. Yeah, Anchrome, to learn the songs of the western flocks, and I have journeyed east to Xiaolong. Okay, that's an L. Okay, to brave the lair of an ancient Kenku lich. Ooh, I have uh, descended. I love how this is all blurry. Like literally, it looks like it was stored in a vial for eons. Into the Underdark to uncover the secrets of the dire Corbies, and I have sailed the Sea of Might on a Spelljammer ship. Oh, it's night. Okay. On a Spelljammer ship to hear sagas from the beaks of Loliar? Koliar. Okay, see? Koliar wind callers. Oh, wow. I am Okay. Walrus Artanu, the last Aarakocra of the Ifru Eri, and this is the song of my people. In the days of thunder, Faerun shook from the marking workings of the creator races. Fearsome serpent men, the sly and subtle fae, zealous amphibian folk, and the sky soaring Eri, each in turn made their mark on the face of the one land. The Eri, which simply meant the people in our language, would spread to the far corners of Faerun and beyond. We were not, however, a monolithic race. Neither form nor philosophy united us. The Eri were loosely divided into three major flocks. I think it's flocks. The Eri, the Aarakocra, followers of the All Father, Croca, tended toward feathers of scarlet rose, plum and peach, and the glorious colors of the dawn. They established the Grand Eyrie of Baiko on the Mount Baiku on the Mount not Harviquar. A lot of these letters, and I wish you guys could see this really well, are just so they're like calligraphy. They really are. Which
Yep.
became the capital of their great nation. The Aarakocra occupied the western lands of Faerun. Mount Haraquar itself stood far west of the far west of where the Sword Coast, yeah, where the Sword Coast ends today. That mountain and much of the former lands of the Aarakocra was destroyed many centuries later when overproud elves uh, thundered the one land in a high magic cataclysm during the time of the first flowering. On the north of the Faerun lived the people of the day, sometimes called the Erisirin. Their plumage ranged from light brown to gold tan and white. A strong and majestic folk, their features were reminiscent of eagles and hawks. They enjoyed the special favor of Croca's daughter, Cyrenita? Cyrenita, yeah. Who they praised as their patron. They nested in their forests of the north, but made their capital at the area of Fukri? Fukri in the peaks of the Star Mounts. The people of the dusk, called by some of the Eri Dwar, Quar, yeah, flocked to the south and the east of Faerun. They bore the feathers of they features of crows and jays. Their feathers were brown and gray and every shade of black, all the somber colors of twilight. Some few possessed harkles, hackles of iridescent feathers that shimmered with the hue of an aura against the Arctic sky. The Eridwar patron was, I think that's Corlin, whose wits and cunning preserved their folks through the worst times of the Batrachi domination, and inspired in their hearts a fierce pride and determined self-reliance, spreading out from the Shara Rookery in the Quarren Mountains. They grew into a loose affiliation of floating city-states that would eventually span the breadth of the continent, while the major flocks had their favored patrons, the Eri, were anything but monotheistic. Their pantheon included a multitude of gods, all but forgotten today. Let's see. Croca, the Allfather, god of creation, intelligence, and invention, ruled the pantheon. His daughter, Cyrenita, radiant goddess of the sky, whose sharp eyes watched over and protected all, would surpass him in later centuries, growing more prominent in the Faerun as the Aarakocra explored and settled further and further to the west. Sneaky Quarlin was ever shunned by Croca for past treachery. Myths told of how Corlin would bring his father trophies from his exploits, jewels and shiny treasure he had won by his wits to garner Croca's favor. But despite his many efforts, at the end of every tale, he was always rebuffed, never managing to gain his father's goodwill. Ooh. Parkilorum. Fraukilorum, god of death and predation, had his place in the divine flock. His adherents included the Ramius, probably the included the ramiest of hunters, and the fierce raptor knights. In the years after the long night, his followers would hunt the surviving Batraki to near extinction, raining death from the sky in retribution for past cruelties. Wow. The divine flock also included Remus of the Eagles and Lady Philip, I think Philip, Beast Lord of Birds. Akaidi, goddess of the elemental air, was known as Kirill of the lords, and with the patience of watchfulness of Serenita, they attended their oppressors, sowing in their hearts the seeds of civilization that would blossom after a storm of falling stars freed them from slavery. In the wake of Learfall, the blazing storm of stars that's in the wake of Tearfall, that's Tearfall, the blazing storms of stars that soured the Batraki overlords from the face of the Faerun. The Avians rose against their former masters. The few remaining Kemenite uh, Thearchs were hurled Thearchs were hurled into the bellies of their iron maud toad altars to burn amidst ashes of untold airy victims, sacrificed over centuries to the hunger of a rapacious god. Hmm, yeah. But the falling stars took their toll on more than the Batraki. Uh, Thwant- Thwantia ached from her fiery wounds. Racked by tremors, she strove to scrub the black, burnt scars from her soil with floods and storms. The world fell into a deep quiescence under a blanket of snow and ice and dark, dark broom that hid the sun for many years. The newly freed avian endured the earthquakes and horrid storms, the sevenfold winters that followed Tearfall nearly finished them off. But this last word is just completely illegible. It is that Krokra provided. Let's see. Oh, there we go. The Aarakocra sung powerful spell mantles around their airy and sacred forests. These mantles, with the grace of the Kokra, shielded them from the harsher deprivations depredations of the long night in the star mounts. Oh, I think that's a well. Fukri again. Fukri's spell singers called forth towering crystal spires from the peaks of the central mountains, whose exquisite magics could control the very weather above the high forest. In the south, the wily people of Corlin taught themselves to burrow and delve in the earth. At first, they merely nested in warm volcanic caves and vents in the Corn Mountains, called by them the Shara. Shafts into the Underdark below gave access to limited food, such as bats, rodents, insects, and edible fungi, though meager it was, sufficient substance to outlast the snow above. Over time, they excavated fastholds in the deeper Underdark, larger rookeries where bigger clans could dwell and where their hatcheries were safe from predators. Certain chambers maintained a constant temperature, ideal for incubating airy eggs, which freed the parents to hunt and scavenge full time. The Shire rookeries flourished through the long night, though some few communities perished with ruinous aftershocks collapsed their doubtful redoubts. These burrows learned the song of stone and soil. They taught themselves to mine and smelt and work metals. They became deft smiths and alchemists, developing talents unequaled among their other Eri. On the surface, the Krokan, Krokan druids of the Western Eri wove runes of warmth and light from the very branches and roots of living trees. Judicious use of perpetual daylight and warming spells saved countless woodlands as tireless ranger priests of Serenita went out among the maybe welds of the one land to preserve the fragile green things from the frost and lack of sun. In the north, the Aery Siren came into conflict with the Winter Queen of Aldrafe over their efforts to warm the land. Frost giants from the kingdom of, I think it's Otar, joined with the Aldra, and the Great War erupted throughout the high forests as tribes of sprites and other fey folk were drawn into the confrontation. No, conflagration uh, on both sides. The battles raged for many years, but in the end, the armies of the armies of ice were driven back to the spine of the world, defeated as much by the returning sun as the tactics of the airy forest. Skilled and gracious priests of Serenata from the airy of Fawiki negotiated a treaty with Ice King of the High Forest Sprites. Together, they planted an Aracor sapling. Oh man, Morma Gangbarar, a celestial tree, spirit of divine lineage, said to be descended from Amantinstein, the very first name in the whole thing, himself. In the shadow of the star mounts, deep within the uh, Anacorn Run, the little sapling grew to tower above the high forest, guarding the pledge of friendship between the two races, a peace that would last nearly 1,000 years. When the ice and snow had finally melted, the Aerie set to work reviving and repairing the dormant forest. As Thuante began to wake from her tortured slumber, the druid of
Nick is gone.
woodlands.
Yeah, but Nick is gone. There we go. Okay.
Oh, am I good?
Yep, you're good.
They nursed the plant life as best they could and planted new seedlings where huge swaths of woodland had slumbered. Wait. In the open fields, they tilled the soil, practicing skills learned under slavers' whips to feed their own beaks and their bellies of the starving people. They planted grains and berries, tubers and fruits. They corralled wild beasts and fowl into herds and flocks, becoming shepherds and ranchers. Farms grew into villages, always built in wooded or high places. They were ever fearful of the wild beasts and monsters that roamed the one land, including thunder lizards in those days, and smaller yet more ferocious breed of colorful lizards that had sprung up from everywhere in the years since Tearfall. The Airy preferred elevated dwellings, high off the ground, safe in the cradling limbs of trees, and in the hmm, crags of sheer cliffs. The Sharam Airy maintained their warm stone rookeries, but as the sun returned, they moved upwards again to settle amid the peaks and precipices of the Shara Mountains. From there, they descended into the fertile, protected valley where Termish lies today. They grew crops there and fished the waters of Newborn Sea. In Baiku to the west, the Kroken rune weavers progressed in their discipline of plating tree burrows and roots into intricate living glyphs until they had lifted whole trees into the sky. Soon the Aarakocra were raising small forests into the air, and the sky folk made their homes there in vast aeries that floated among the clouds. Super cool. Yeah, the Metharies thought they were so clever when they raised their mighty cities in flight, but the dragons flew such lofty lairs in far more ancient times, as did the giants before. Cloud giants, friends of Clues. Them who taught them, giants before them, who taught them the secret. Yet the Aerie were the first to perfect the art. The southern Aerie lacked the devotion of their western cousins to foster the skill of crafting runes, which is, at the heart, an exercise in divine power. But they were very canny in their art. The rookery of the Arcanists of Shara developed feasts of arcane magic, never rivaled by flocks of the north and west. They opened portals to the elemental planes and forged uh, compacts with their Jim? Yeah, with their Jin. Yeah, with the Jin. Under genie tutelage, the under genie tutelage, the Shirana Sharans bound powerful elemental spirits to small timber structures, raising them aloft, linking these vessels together with chain and rope and wood. The Eri Duar built their own floating rookeries in which to dwell. In less than a century, the Eri of Shara had gone from burrowing in the ground to soaring above the clouds, a triumph that swelled their breasts with pride. As the uh, arcanists grew ever more proficient in their art, they learned to forgo the binding of elements in favor of crafting rudimentary spell jamming helms, an innovation that spread to the west as the Aarakocra. So that's super cool. The Aarakocra basically started spell jamming. Wow, which makes sense as a flying people. The Aarakocra would come to build several of their smaller cities using this technique. The Sharn rookeries grew bigger and bigger. In the later centuries, the Sharons discovered the secret of crafting a mithril Mythalar. Finally, their rookeries could rival the cloud forests of their northern and western cousins. The rookery and Tangshara, which sailed above the western Shar, was the first of these, and no other ever matched its glory. To craft the city, the roots of great were tree were braided around the mystic artifact. Only the Sharan or Arcanist knew the secret of protecting the tree from the impossible forces that would slay any living thing that touched the surface of the Mythalar. Over time, the Mythalar nourished the tree, fattened its boughs, extending it outwards and upwards into an arboreal colossus, truly cyclopean in magnitude. Uh, Additional trees, among them Zelantura, I think that's oak, oaks, cypress, duskwood, and fandars, were tethered to the central weir by ropes and netting, and by interweaving their branches, the rookery was spun outwards in spiral fashion until it had grown many bow shots in diameter. At its most populous, the rookery supported nearly 50,000 people. Wow. The sky realms of the Eyrie could grow only limited food, fruiting trees, vines, and small roosts of pigeons, quail, and partridge. But the demands of a large population required much greater nourishment than could be grown in the clouds. Supplies of food had to be brought up continuously from the fields and farms below. The Aries above Baiku and Fukri employed some Sorwells. Yeah, employed Sorwells, cloud rays, uh, carts drawn by teams of giant eagles, and great flying arcs to haul goods from the surface, while the Sharan rookeries bred titanic rocks to lift supplies up from the valley below. As the flying cities proliferated, they spread outward from the home nests. Each new eyrie spared itself far from the next, claiming a wide expanse of land beneath in five. Every floating metropolis depended on a sizable territory of farms and holdings below it. Each territory, including the city and the lands beneath it, separated as an independent canton, governing themselves as they saw best. They maintained friendly ties with each other and stronger ties still to their home nests, the Baiku, Fukri, and Shara. The Aryan Baiku spread westward to lands now long vanished beneath the waves. They settled also to their east, occupying the skies above what is now western heartlands, farming the green fields below. They founded a traditional terrestrial eyrie in the cloud peaks called Dymai Dymica? Dynake, that's an N. Okay, Dynake, which was lost in the calamitous war with a colony of cloud giants from Duar Kongrik. This song is still sung today in Anchrome as the dirge of the Daimaker. The area of Fukri spread their floating colonies across the north and east into the green plains of the uh, Anarok, and further east along the shores of the star uh, carved sea to the roost above the forests of the Coromonth, Carmenthor, Lethir, and the Dwar. The area of Shara first founded the rookery of, I think that's Ifwi Shara above the Goltmere, Goltmere, Goltmere forest. The rookery of the Curio Shara above the shining plains, and from there they spread west as far as the lands that comprise modern Am and the Medelth, Moldath. They traveled east through the lands of the old empire long before there were any empires there, as far as the Roran plains and south across the whole of the Shar to the shores of the Great Sea. In the Shar, the rookery of the Kurkuri Shara came in conflict with the Knolls of Argamash, a militant kingdom of slavers, highly organized and aggressive. The Knolls held tribes of Plainsfae, humans and even hill giants under their leash. Under their lash. The Knolls used these slaves to help conquer more territory and support uh, on an expansionist regime. The warriors of the Argonash raided constantly in the farms of the holdings that supported the Kukri Shara, thinking to quash a minor annoyance. Their raptor knights assaulted the seat of power of the Argonash, flying over their race. They blasted fireballs and lightning down at the Null King and his army. The Knolls responded by shooting the race from the sky with great ballistae. Wow. The vengeful Knolls then turned the farms and fields of the Shara, setting the Shara ablaze. Wow. The stunned Kukri matriarchs became enraged. Seeing the ancient battle calls, they entreated the aid of neighboring rookeries, Awakrit Shara and Dwea. Dwea. They founded a traditional terrestrial area in the Cloud Peaks. Oh, uh, yep. Together they sought to prosecute a war of extermination against the Argonash, but the Triune matriarchs underestimated the resourceful Knolls. Knoll shamans prayed to Denagah, D- Iganahu, who loosed a school of Turlin from the nether plains. From the backs of the flying sharks, the Knoll cavalry swarmed the area. The the shark riders carried arrows tipped with dung and pitch, which they set alight and fired upon the rookeries. Wow. Their voracious mounts tore through the skins of defenders, devouring night after night right out of the air. Before the day was done, the Knolls prevailed, and all the three rookeries crashed in cinders to the ground. Wow. Super violent. Rookeries across the Shar were horrified. They summoned the Jinn, uh, and Efreet to harrow the Knolls with whirlwinds and fires. The shaman of the Duergar, or whatever, summoned Marashi, spirits of pestilence, from the barrens of doom and despair to blight the airy crops and spread a wasting plague among the avians. Wow. The airy core were decimated, with their farmlands ruined and little workforce remaining to farm them. The Aerie set upon humans and Fey tribes to the north of the Shar in order to plunder their crops and enslave a replacement workforce to feed the hungry rookeries. Thus began a never-ending cycle of conquest as the southern rookeries exhausted the resources of each successive region and moved further and further north. Riding in great uh, howdahs atop the backs of colossal battle rocks. That's a lot. The rap Yeah, yeah. The raptor legions hurled spells and bolts down at their woeful victims. They girded these living dreadnoughts in the mithril barding, sacrificing maneuverability for impregnability until their alchemists discovered the secret of shearing sheening the rock's feathers in an adamantine, a technique that made them nigh impervious to arrows and missile fire. Wow. Arcanists of the less militant rookeries never cease their studies into the summoning arts. Having mastered the inner planes, they gaze beyond the astral to explore the other planes. They learn to summon such outsiders as celestials and fiends. Above the shores of the great sea, in the remote rookery of the Qualoc Shara, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Shara, that's smudged, a young summoner named Fiska oh, Mewilorn stumbled upon a mysterious name in her researches into a plane that was as yet unknown to her. Uttering that name released a vile power that would change the fate of the Aerie forever. Dazriel? Dazriel. Pazriel. He appeared to her as the handsomest of Aerie with 6 wings. He promised to show her the awesome secrets and wonders. He claimed to be a god. Pazriel, a sweet sounding name for a demonic lord of ultimate corruption. With a uh, sonorous song, he seduced the curious mage, promising gifts and powers, untold if she would only pledge her soul to him. And he delivered. Yeah, rule number 1, if you have to pledge a soul, you're gonna have a bad time. Soon, Siska was the archmage of her rookery, and a skilled seductress herself. Pazriel channeled her hunger for knowledge into a hunger for power, investing her as the herald of his growing faith. All the Aerie of the Qualoc Shara, to a one, joined their song with hers, and pledged their souls to Pazriel. Qualoc Shara became a terror in the sky. Pazriel taught the Arcanists how to summon magical servants called Vroka? Vrox. I think it's Vrox. With the aid of demon legions, the Qualkshara conquered far-flung lands. Soon they brought all neighboring rookeries under Seiska's iron wing. Transferring her capital to the grand rookery of the Tangshara, the scion of Pazriel rapidly expanded her empire, usurping control of all the lands from Rarin back to the home nest of Shara in the Quora Mountains. The Aerie Corps abandoned the faith of Quoralim to worship at the talons of Pazriel. Those few faithful who refused to convert were tied to stones and flung from the edges. The hearts of the Aerie Corps became as dark as their feathers, and the people of the dusk became the people of the night. One lone city maintained its allegiance to Corlin and escaped to the east. The rookery of the I think it's Timaku? Time Team Kushara fled to the furthest peaks of the Kartur, yeah, where their descendants yet thrive today as the crow-headed race known as Tengu. Oh, the Tengu are the only branch of the Aerie Corps who never lost their wings. Interesting. So there's a lot of history in all of Faerun based around the Aarakocra. The sweet promises of Pazriel came at a terrible cost for the rest of the Aerie Quar. Pazriel never gives any gift but for the price of the thing you hold most dear. Pazriel took from them the power of flight. The Aerie of Shara never again rode the winds uh, except by hint of spell or steed. Having brought the entirety of the Sharan rookeries under the shadow of the Dread Wing, Saiska turned her gaze to the north, upon the cantons of the Aerie Kogra and Aerie Serum. The weave erupted in pyrotechnic splendor as the three great magical nations went to war. The Kroken Aeries of the western heartlands were first to fall, as the rookery of the Tang Shara loomed over the horizon. Vrox and Aerie joined together in the dance of ruin, capering and whirling in fiendish frenzy about the battlements. Yeah, about the battlements. Crackling bolts of eldritch power arced across the firmament to char the trees of the flying fortress. Sharn invaders, forest. Sorry, the flying forest. Sharn invaders launched from the ramparts, arrayed in battle formations. Their dark uh, chevrons sliced the skies like daggers. Battle Roca eclipsed the sun. Battle rocks eclipsed the sun as they plunged down upon the aerial groves. Defenders rose from the canopies as the backs of the sorwells and the boughs of great winged trents. Splinters and feathers, blood and sap rained from the clouds as the forces clashed in the air. Wielding their many branches like a windmill of cudgels? Yeah, a windmill of cudgels. The trance hurtled at the battle rocks, crashing down on them in pikes of arboreal fury. The elephantine timbers of their legs, like enormous battering rams, shattered bones and beaks as the wooden warriors pounced upon the colossal birds. Powerful roots drove beneath feathers and skin to grasp unshakable purchase. The weight of them pressed the rocks from the sky. A whirlwind of blows bashed upon rock skulls, flung the howdahs from their backs, along with the invaders inside, and ripped the feathers from the flesh. The racks bucked and twisted in the air, arcing their heads round. Sharp beaks sought vulnerable eyes, and true green leaves from trent wings. Mighty talons rent bark from the flesh, broke limbs, and pierced vital organs. Locked in deadly embrace, both rocks and trance plummeted to the earth below. The Aarakocra fought valiantly, yet in vain. The conjurers of the Tang Shara could summon their limitless rocks from the abyss, while the defending forces dwindled as the battle wore on. After the Ares of Fioria, Fioria and Quafang fell to Sieska, the surviving Kroken Ares fled west, retreating to Bilko. It's smudge. Baiku. The shadow of the Tang Shara fell upon the high forest as the Sharan juggernaut floated relentlessly northward to engage the Eri Siren and Fukri. Honoring ancient treaties, the sprites came to aid their avian allies against the aggressors, but Saiska's Arcanus slaughtered the Fae with fireballs, thunderbolts, and necromantic uh, miasmas. They drew a life form from their tiny frames. In the initial volleys of the assault of the Fukri, the peerless Arcanus of the Tang Shara easily broke through the spell mantles that protected the Eri. Magical energies coursed down upon the mountain peaks, shattering the crystal spires of the Terry Siren. Down below the Erekor Mograbrara, who had guarded the high forest for nearly 1,000 years, drew strength and nourishment from the soil of the uh, Chontia for the unimaginable feat he was about to undertake. Mystical roots tapped the weave itself for raw magical power. Pulling it into himself, he powered a miraculous transformation. Silver fire coursed through his xylem and phloem, expanding his tissues. He multiplied himself in size, growing in scant instants 1,000 wingspans into the sky, towering over the forest, the largest being ever to grace the face of Toril, his massive roots buckling the earth below as he tried to steady himself. Moribaribar, poised to strike against Sieska's terrible city. His timbers cracked and splintered as he struggled to maintain the magic that sustained him, like a flower bending to the face the sun. Moribara now leaned toward the Sharam rookery. All branches of his fantastic frame entwined themselves around Siska's citadel, canting it canting it at a violent angle. Many hundreds of invaders fell from the walls of the Morgbara cemented as Morgbara cemented his hold. Then as magic felled him, the timber of his immense trunk shattered with a clap of thunder. The elder tree fell, crashing down upon the slopes of the Star Mounts, his great weight wrenching Tengshara from its lofty heights. His tragic sacrifice is still sung by the Trent Scalds today, in a saga called The Lament of Morgbara. The rookery smashed into the mountain face, disintegrating into a cloud of debris. The Mithalar cracked open and evaporated in a gout of mystic flame. The Sharon tyrant was dead. The Eyrie of Fukari was demolished, but the war with Shara was ended. The eastern area of the Eyrie Saren survived, enduring an uneasy detente with the Sharon Empire to the south. But the peace would last only a few years before a new foe revealed itself. Eyrie hunters and soldiers were called increasingly to defend farms and settlements from encroaching dragons. The little lizards that hatched in the wake of the Tearfall had grown into mighty worms. Over centuries, the dragons had increased their size many-fold, and their numbers had multiplied. Uh, they hid within caverns and swamps, in desert sands and mountain ranges. Biding their time, they gathered their strength, watching the skies until the day they would challenge the Eyrie for dominion over Faerun. On that fateful day, some 1,000 years after they fell from the sky as eggs, dragons arose. Faerun swarmed together in the first flight of the dragons. Flight of dragons. They assailed the avians in the air, on the land and beneath the ground. They burned the cities from the skies. They snatched the Eyrie from the air, swallowing them in mid-flight. They fell upon the home nests of Baiko and Shara, ravaging the Eyries, destroying them utterly. The worm Magamot ram Magmut Magamot rampaged through the Underdark, below the Quarren Mountains, consuming the Sharns, and burning their ancestral hatcheries. Magamot took all of Shara as his lair, and finding many wonders there, used airy magic to help found the first dragon kingdom. Sharn survivors escaped deeper into the Underdark, where the feral and twisted descendants of the Airy Quar became the dire Corbies. Oh wow. The survivors of the Baiko fled west across the ocean to the land called Anchrome. Anchrome, yeah. 5 of their cities, all crafted from spell-jamming helms, fled to the stars. I think it's Rulungwar, Do Donaki, Fra Iskri, Colotial, and an unnamed fifth one lost during the Exodus. Cross the sea of night to the world of Lord. Yeah, Koliar. These Aries float there still among Koliar's manifold moons. Descendants of the Aarakocra are known today as the Aarakocra. Some few repentant Aarakocra begged Quarlium for his mercy, and he led them to the Kara Tur, Karatur, to find refuge with their long lost cousins of Tianku Shara. Descendants of these people call themselves Kinku, a name which some scholars believe derives from Kani Tiniku, which means little brothers of the Timku, while other sages think it merely a linguistic variant of the name Timku itself. Both people, the Tingu and the Kinku, thrive to this day in the Karatur. Over the centuries, many Kinku have immigrated back to Faerun and have a notable presence in the unapproachable East. On the year of Eagle's flight, 418 DR, I think it's DR, a colony of the forebears Aarakocra mastica flew from the a colony of my forebears Aarakocra from Mastika flew from the lands beyond the trackless sea to resettle our ancestral Ares in Faerun. They founded the 6 Ares in the Star Mounts, where our people lived peacefully, until the hatred worm Elastromelicros, huh, Elacromalicros rekindled ancient rivalries. Awakening from his hibernation, the green, I'm assuming it's going to say wyvern, savage, oh, dragon, savaged 5 of the 6 Ares, slaying every or nearly all of my people, leaving few to tell our tale. But the world must know our story. The glory of the Aerie will be sung again, carried on the tongues of man. I am Marus Artanu, the last Aarakocra of the Aerie of Ifru Carry. Go forth and spread our song. Super dope, super long.